Adaptive testing changes how you should think about pacing because each question influences what comes next, not just your final score. That does not mean you should try to game the algorithm, but it does mean you need to respect that consistency matters more than bursts of brilliance. Every response feeds the model that estimates your competence, so wild swings in effort and attention can hurt you more than a steady, disciplined approach. The exam is not looking for perfection on any single item. It is looking for sustained evidence of sound judgment across many items. When you internalize that, your mindset shifts from ace this question to apply my process reliably. Time management in an adaptive exam starts with rhythm rather than speed. Candidates who rush early often pay for it later by burning cognitive energy and increasing error rates as fatigue sets in. A steady pace keeps your breathing, posture, and focus aligned so that decision-making quality stays consistent. You are not rewarded for finishing early, and you are not punished for taking reasonable time on a difficult item. What matters is avoiding extremes, where some questions get rushed guesses and others get excessive scrutiny. A calm, even rhythm is the best foundation for long session performance. Each question deserves the same core process, regardless of whether it looks easy or intimidating. That process includes reading the STEM carefully, identifying the task, noting constraints, and then evaluating answers against those constraints. When candidates abandon their process for easy questions, they often miss qualifiers or hidden perspective cues. When they abandon it for hard questions, they spiral into overanalysis and doubt. Consistency protects you from both errors by making your behavior predictable under stress. The exam rewards disciplined thinking more than flashes of insight. Early questions are not warm-ups, even though they may feel that way psychologically. Because the exam adapts continuously, early responses still shape the difficulty and nature of later questions. Treating early items casually can send the wrong signal about your level and push you into a path that feels harder than it needed to be. That does not mean you should be anxious about early questions, only that you should give them the same attention you plan to give every question. The best approach is to assume every question matters equally and act accordingly. This mindset removes the temptation to rush at the start. Guessing is sometimes unavoidable, and adaptive testing does not change that reality. When you must guess, the most reliable strategy is to choose the option that aligns with broadly accepted security principles rather than narrow technical tricks. Principle-based answers tend to hold up better under ambiguity because the exam is designed around professional judgment, not trivia. Eliminating clearly wrong options and then selecting the answer that best reflects governance, risk reduction, or proper sequencing is usually safer than picking something flashy. Guessing should still be structured, not random. A disciplined guess is very different from a panicked one. Overthinking is one of the most common time sinks, and it usually comes from chasing perfect certainty in questions that are intentionally ambiguous. Many CISSP questions are written so that no answer feels completely satisfying, because real-world decisions are rarely clean. If you wait until you feel 100% sure, you will burn time and confidence. The exam expects you to choose the best available option, not a flawless one. Recognizing when you have reached reasonable confidence and moving on is a skill you must practice deliberately. Using the STEM as an anchor is critical to avoiding distraction by answer detail. Answer choices are often verbose and packed with technically correct statements designed to pull your attention away from the actual ask. When you feel yourself getting lost in the answers, return mentally to the STEM and restate the task and constraints in simple terms. Then ask which option best satisfies that restated question. This technique prevents you from evaluating answers in isolation and losing sight of relevance. The STEM defines the problem, and the answers only exist to solve it.
tracking time indirectly is more effective than constantly watching the clock.
A practical signal is noticing when a single question is consuming far more effort than your normal pattern.
When that happens, it is often a sign that you are stuck between two close options and are unlikely to gain clarity with more rereading. At that point, making a reasoned choice and moving on is usually better than continuing to grind.
Indirect awareness keeps you from panicking about time while still preventing runaway effort.
It also preserves mental energy for later questions.
One common trap is repeatedly revisiting the same elimination logic, circling the same two answers without making progress. This loop feels productive, but it rarely produces new insight after a few passes. Once you have eliminated clearly wrong options and compared the remaining ones against the stem, commit to a choice. Lingering longer does not usually improve accuracy, but it does increase fatigue and doubt. Trust your process, make the decision, and release the question. Confidence grows from decisive action, not from endless reconsideration. Careful reading remains essential, especially for negatives, qualifiers, and sequencing words. Words like not, except, first, and most likely fundamentally change what the question is asking. Missing one of these can invalidate otherwise sound reasoning. Slow down just enough at the start of each question to catch these signals before you dive into analysis. That small investment of time saves far more time than it costs by preventing avoidable mistakes. Precision at the beginning leads to speed later. Stress management is not optional in a long adaptive exam because cognitive performance and physical state are tightly linked. Simple techniques like controlled breathing, relaxed shoulders, and neutral posture help maintain focus and reduce mental noise. When stress spikes, decision-making narrows and you become more vulnerable to distractors. Briefly resetting your body can reset your thinking without taking a formal break. Calm is not just an emotional preference, it is a performance tool. Breaks and pacing depend on the rules of the exam and what options are available to you. If breaks are allowed, use them strategically to reset rather than to cram or second-guess. If breaks are limited or unavailable, micro-resets through posture and breathing become even more important. Pacing should assume that fatigue will accumulate, so your early discipline protects your later performance. Planning for the full duration helps you avoid hitting a wall near the end. Fatigue increases errors subtly, often through skipped words, shallow elimination, or impulsive choices. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. You are better served by answering every question at a solid, professional level than by answering some brilliantly and others poorly. Adaptive exams reward sustained competence, not peaks and valleys. Maintaining calm, steady processing across the entire session is one of the strongest advantages you can give yourself. The core lesson of adaptive testing and time management is that steady processing beats reactive behavior. Each question should receive the same thoughtful, disciplined approach, regardless of where you are in the session or how the question feels emotionally. Guessing should be principled, overthinking should be recognized and stopped, and time awareness should be indirect rather than obsessive. Stress management supports judgment, and consistency protects accuracy as fatigue builds. When you pace yourself calmly and apply your process reliably, the adaptive nature of the exam works with you rather than against you, rewarding controlled decision-making over impulsive brilliance. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.